Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Ben Jackson. As always, I'll be your host, and I'm joined by Scott and Joris. Scott and Joris, how are you guys doing this evening?
Hey, Belgian football lovers, how's it going?
Back to action. That's actually the main thing already.
Exactly. And we're kind of ramping it up now as we head towards the World Cup with midweek European games and some midweek league matches coming up. It's all getting very, very exciting. Let's, as always, quickly go through the results from the weekend before we dive into each of the games. We had the Liège derby on Friday night, and it was a bit of a surprise as Seraing, the visitors, ran out 2-0 winners. Union headed to Leuven on Saturday afternoon, and they pummeled them a little bit with a nice 3-0 victory there. Westerlo put Zultevalligem in all sorts of trouble with a 2-0 win at home. Oostend lost 2-1 to Genk. Club Brugge on Saturday night with a nice comfortable 3-0 victory over Mechelen. Anderlecht lost at home. They lost 1-0 to Charleroi, putting pressure on Mazu. Ghent lost an absolute thriller against Cercle Brugge. That one finished 4-3. Kortrijk finally won a game, and obviously that meant Antwerp finally lost a game. Kortrijk won that one 2-1. We're going to talk about Didier Lamkelzee, that is for sure. And then Eupen won as well against St. Truden, so probably a bit of a shock there when you consider how those two sides have been doing. But let's start with that Liège derby then. And I think it's safe to say, given that the run Standard were on 4 wins in a row, looking good against the Seraing side that had gone two defeats in a row, you're thinking, yeah, Seraing got that win there last year thanks to a Bernier goal, but probably not going to repeat it this time. But they did. Terrible defending from Standard Liège for the first goal. No one really clearing their lines from a pretty routine set piece that goes short and is quite simple. Should have been cleared. Wasn't cleared. Mustafa Umbal on the 9th minute just volleys it into the top corner just inside the box. Really, really nice finish from him to get his first goal for the club. Another player got his first goal in the Pro League, first goal of the season to make this 2-0. Morgan Poati picks it up just inside the Standard half in the second half. Managed to bounce through a couple of tackles that they, again, really should have done better, but they didn't. He then lashes it in, much to the delight of the entire Seraing team and fans. Bit of a, I guess you could say, kind of a hit them on the break from Seraing in this one, but they'll be more than happy with that. Just 31% possession. They still managed 10 shots, 3 of which were on target. I mean, Standard also only managed 3 shots on target in this one as well. Really big result, guys, for Seraing, just given every kind of prediction of them pre-season. And I guess with this being kind of the beginning of the weekend, it suddenly ramped the pressure up on a bunch of teams around them.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I mean, I watching the game, I didn't think Standard played too badly. Mistakes aside, there was some pretty decent football played. You're starting to see the signs of I think the way that they're going to play under Ronny Deila. I think the disappointing thing about this, and this goes back to something that Ronny Deila said after the win against Club Brugge just before the international break, where he said that I want us to get better at using the ball in kind of key areas. And this game absolutely typified that. There was a lot of good stuff from Standard. They got into a lot of good areas, but their choice of pass at key moments or the choice of run was often, the worst possible one they could have went for. So it's sharpening up those things that make the difference at the end of the day. And Ronny Deila looked a wee bit frustrated, actually, on the touchline during most of this, and I could kind of understand why. Seraing, on the other hand, actually had a game plan which obviously worked very, very well. I felt they won a lot of the midfield battles, were able to break quite quickly on Standard, and they looked to be quite happy to let Standard have the ball, to be honest. So I thought Sambu was fantastic. Actually, I thought he had a really, really good game. Was looking really good, causing Standard all sorts of problems. And it's just weird, just when you think kind of Standard of kind of properly started to turn some kind of a corner. Some of the issues that have been long-standing for a long time just rear their head again. And I don't know, some people were speculating that were they disrupted a wee bit by the international break. I don't tend to read too much into these things, because I think that these things can work for you just as much as against you. So I think often that can be an excuse, when you come back from a break like that and don't get a result that perhaps you would expect to get. I think they just kind of need to keep going. It's nice to see some of their new signings starting games now, and I think they will benefit from playing longer together. Worth a shout out for Poor Aaron Donham, who just, can't really get the rub of the green at all this season, can't finish games, has kind of been struggling a little bit with his performance levels, I think, for a player who's much better than what he's been showing of late as well. Ronnie Deila, interestingly, persevering with him because he knows he's a good player and that probably he's best placed to get the best football out of him. Probably a big missed opportunity for Standard because they really could have rocketed up the table if they'd got 3 points there. But in the end, that result was probably a little bit embarrassing when you consider how little joy Seraing have had against Standard over the years for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, first clean sheet for Seraing, and at the same time, first game Standard don't score at least one goal. Starting off the weekend of surprises, like Ben already alluded to. With a sweet derby win. Another thing Ben already mentioned, the second derby win in a row as well, since they are in the first year since last season. They have won at Cercle twice. I'm really not going to say much new here anymore. That this defensively, Standard gave it away with these 2 goals. While Seraing did play well, Standard struggling a bit with creating some things, which you could also already see from the stats, from the 3 shots on target. And yeah, you would expect more against a team like Seraing, with all due respect. I think it's normal as well, like with Standard, like I alluded to last time as well, after 4 wins in a row, still, they were not going to be able to keep this specific form up. And I do see them indeed having this kind of season, having top performances, but on the other hand, also struggling in other games, maybe especially as they will have to make the game. We'll have to see how this continues, because indeed, like Scott mentioned, a lot of new faces now playing as well. If that gels together well, then maybe my predictions can get a bit higher for them as well. Good win for Seraing, and putting a lot of pressure on a lot of teams, and a lot of teams have dealt really well with that. But we'll get to that throughout this episode.
No, you definitely nailed it there, Joris, with just kind of instantly put pressure on some sides. 2 sides it probably didn't really affect much because they are right at the other end of the table, kind of in and around those playoff positions. Was Leuven and Union. And like I said before, it was Union that ran out 3-0 winners in this one. Christian Burgess from a set piece with the first goal. I don't know, guys. The celebration, just releasing the locks of hair, the flowing locks of hair. Just, I'm not sure. I don't know about it. Not sure that's the vibe, the look of what I wanted to see. Kind of like Jesus style hair from Christian Burgess, because you're so used to seeing it in that ponytail, and it makes it look a little bit like a samurai, a little bit more like rough and ready, and then he releases it.
Yeah, it takes away a bit of the myth, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. He just loses that kind of like hard man mental like vibe that I get from Christian Burgess. But I know he's a constant entertainer. We're big fans of Christian Burgess here, and like nice to see him getting on the score sheet. Then we saw a hilarious goal. I haven't seen it not being given as an Ismail Kandus goal, but I feel like it just shouldn't be. I mean, fair play to the man. He picks the ball up, he wins the ball back and is just inside the Leuven half, drives forward a bit and thinks, I'm just going to unleash one from 30, 40 yards. And it was a terrible shot. It was so, like, you just knew nothing. It was going to go nowhere. And then Plentinks just deflects it miles up in the air and it just flies past Kortrijk, who's basically already committed to one side, and it just like drops into the goal. And like, when you watch it on the replay and stuff like that, you can tell even the Union fans behind the goal aren't sure where it's going until it drops in the net. Kandus looked a bit like embarrassed by it. He found the funny side of it. Leuven, not so much. But that was 2-0 to Union. And then the man you'd expect to get on the score sheet a lot more, and they'll hope this will kind of kickstart him to get a couple more goals this season, is Dante Vanzeer. Nice play out wide. Good run from Adlinga. Lovely ball across. Like, Vanzeer was in so much space. Probably a cleverer finish, I think, than people maybe give him credit for, because he's on the stretch, but he manages it to just slightly lift it over the goalkeeper into that far corner. And guys, I think it's a great result for them going into this European week when they've got Brugge. So we know that Brugge are going to be the tougher team in that group. But this is a nice confidence-boosting way to get into that, while also being able to rotate the squad a little bit, so they've got a couple of players kind of rested and ready to go.
Yeah, do you know, the thing about this game for me was it was just a reminder, not that anybody really needed one, but it just reminded me of what a good side Union really are, actually. They're a good side. I mean, they didn't start particularly well in this game. Leuven started kind of quite well the first 15, 20 minutes on the whole. I thought they were the better side, and Union really weren't in the game. They were kind of sitting quite deep. But they get a goal somewhat against the run of play. Big Brugge kind of getting up, very cute header. He did very well actually. It was a good goal. And then things slowly start to change. They get the second, somewhat fortuitously with that wicked deflection. And as wicked deflections go, that was a huge one. And kind of thereafter, they're in complete control of the game, almost out of nowhere. And after that, they started to work themselves into the game and kind of dominate it. Leuven not managing to do the things that they've been good at this season. That's imposing themselves physically and being quite effective on the break, which they have been this season. But it shows you that you make your own luck in football, and you kind of have to keep going. And we know what a positive, resilient side Union are, and this game kind of really typified it. And I was talking last week about how great it's been to see that competing twice a week, having the European and the domestic challenge going on simultaneously. They have so far responded very well to that, and it has not really impacted them in any way at all negatively. They seem to kind of be lapping it up actually, which is great to see. But I came away from this game thinking, they're a good side. They really are a good side, and most sides I don't think enjoy playing Union these days because that game shows you that you can start a game a bit poorly, I thought, and yet just hit teams with a sucker punch, which completely changes the course of a game. So they're no mugs, Union, and I just it's great to be enjoying watching them again.
Yeah, that's also 6 wins out of the last 7 games for Union, of course. So that to stress that again, I don't think anyone likes to play against a team in such good form, with being defensively strong, so that they even can overcome worse parts of games in most of the games, which also means they leapfrog Leuven in this game and to the 4th position. That could prove important, of course, by the end of the season, if they would manage to stay in 4th or even improve that position still, of course. Then well done, Union. On the other hand, Leuven first loss in 5 games. So before this game, I guess Union also didn't really look that much forward towards this game, or at least were a bit cautious. They didn't manage to score in the last 2 games now, Leuven. So yeah, their good run needs to pick up again. It's not ended. It's way too soon to say that, but they need to score some goals again. Sometimes this has been an issue with them in the past already, so they need to see that doesn't become an issue again. One last thing that has nothing to do with either side, but it was curious to see the curious game event that you don't see every day. The change of the 4th referee in the second half. With Simonini, which is a very talented referee as far as I know. I don't think he whistled in the Pro League yet, but in what was previously known as 1B, he has. I've heard good comments about him, and you don't always hear that about referees. So just wanted to give him a little shout. Although it's all hearsay. I have to say that. So I haven't watched any game with him in charge, but. Let's. This is an appearance for him in the Pro League. I guess he already made some more, but now it was his first visible experience in the Pro League, I guess.
It's worth also mentioning. I think that Union are obviously really enjoying playing at Den Reef, whether they're the home side or the away side. It's certainly a stadium that is bringing them as much joy as playing at home, which amused me. Their results there have been very, very good. That made me chuckle this weekend as well.
Home away from home, I guess it is at the moment, isn't it? Do you reckon they accidentally tried to go into the home dressing room at the point of this game? Who knows? On Simonini, actually, Joris, I'm glad you picked that one up, because I've seen him a lot of times just kind of fourth officialing in 1A games, and I was always just like, why has he never been given the opportunity to ref? Do you know what I mean? Like, we've bemoaned the lack of quality refs, and I know it's nice to see some diversity amongst the refereeing classes as well, isn't it? Because it is very kind of homogenous when it comes to referees, so it's nice to see different people from different backgrounds getting a chance at the top level, and hopefully it's the start of many for him. And who knows, maybe we'll actually start praising referees again, because I think that's probably the first nice thing you've said about a referee for quite a while, Joris. So good times all round for him there.
I haven't said anything bad this season yet, which is more remarkable, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say. One team that's on a remarkable run of form, I guess we could say, is Westerlo. They made it 3 wins on the bounce. And speaking of teams under pressure, Zulta with that Seraing win, came into this game under a ton of pressure. And Baile especially, while some of the football they played at the beginning of the season looked better than it had been, and they looked a little bit better, it just seems that it's just not working at the moment for him or them. It was Nasser Chadli that kind of got things going for the home side with his first goal of the season. Lovely header at the back stick from him, but arguably should have been better defended from Zulte Waregem again. It stayed 1-0 until the second half, and 47 minutes in, Lyle Foster, nice header from him, again at the back post, but this time kind of angling it across the goalkeeper, Sammy Bossett. And yeah, that's how it stayed. Despite having more of the possession, more shots, Zulte Waregem just could not find the back of the net to give themselves a chance in this one. We've seen him he's been changing formation, he's changed personnel, he's dropped Vossen, he's put Vossen back in, he's tried loads of other different things. Just doesn't seem to be working at the moment. And I don't know, guys, I just feel like time is ticking. I presumed he'd be gone this week. I feel like they might have just been like, right, that's it. Seraing winning, that's that. If you know what I mean, like we can't afford to go down. Just kind of looking at the teams they've got coming up, they've got Leuven, Kortrijk. Leuven obviously been a good side. Kortrijk, they've got that win. Anderlecht obviously struggling, but it's still a tricky game. Like there's no quick fixes that you look at a game and you think, okay, yeah, that's the one they can maybe go and win, because they aren't going and winning the games at all at the moment, and they're not playing that great in terms of the results. And I think at this point they don't need to be playing great. They just need to get some sort of win to give them a little bit of momentum, because they are starting to get a little bit adrift at the bottom. They're 4 points now off the sides above them, 4 points away from safety as well. Goal difference of -13. It is really looking bad. And Scott, you put this name out there, but you wouldn't be surprised to see a certain Frankie Drury make a return if things continue like they are. I mean, it's possible, isn't it? Like it could happen. Who knows?
Yeah, I think, knowing Belgian football the way that we all do now, I think, very little would surprise us anymore. And I did think that after this game. I thought, yeah, what are the chances that might happen even on a short-term basis, just to kind of try and turn the tide a little bit. Like you, Ben, I am quite surprised that Mbale is still in post. I felt that with a number of other results going against Zulta this weekend, with sides in and about them, I thought that almost kind of guaranteed that that he wouldn't be still in post by the time we sat down to record this week's episode. But as of recording, as of right now, he is still in post. I think the risk with persevering at the moment is that the season becomes very much about staying up rather than any other positive objective at all, and that's quite risky. I did see some comments from Mbale after the game saying that he felt that the mentality was good. He was happy with the way that they played. I found some of his comments slightly worrying because actually, although some of the data, when you look at it closely, isn't actually awful, the stuff that matters is, and something does have to change. He said that himself. He said, look, it's just got to turn. But I think that bunker mentality of just hoping that it's magically going to happen, I think is pretty wishful thinking. I think they have some tricky fixtures coming up as well. Looking at their schedule over the next month or so, I don't see too many points for them in there. So I don't see too much changing longer term. And as you were saying, they are starting to show signs of being cut adrift a little bit at the bottom. I'm not sure what the long-term strategy is. Maybe they're thinking, just give it a little bit longer, which is kind of fair enough. But this season being so different to all the others, with that month-long break for the World Cup, I think it becomes a huge risk to not do what Cercle did a week or so ago, and that is make the change early. And make the best use of your time possible. It's very worrying, I think, and we've mentioned this a couple of times, that none of the summer signings have really had that much of an impact, with the exception of Nicholas Romans, who I think has been decent. but obviously he's not enough in himself to change things fundamentally. I think Yellowbosson, I think there's too much pressure on his shoulders to kind of carry the team at the moment, and offensively there's just nothing happening. I do hope somebody has told him you're allowed to try and score from outside the box. That might change everything for them, because every goal they've scored this season has been inside the box. So they need to try and do something a bit different, because they're still trying to do that. I felt like they were trying to walk the ball over the line like Arsenal used to do for such a long time. They didn't play badly this weekend. I thought they were a little bit better, but I never really felt they were going to score. I always felt watching Westerlo that, you know, I fancied them strongly to win this game, which they did, and I always felt they were going to score more goals. I mean, you know, they come out at the start of the second half and they concede the second goal within a couple of minutes, and that's the game kind of gone at that point. And you know, you kind of think that it's. I really want to say something positive about Zalta. I really do, but I feel like I've not been able to do that since that game, which way back at the start of the season at the Jan Breidel, where they actually played very well but didn't get anything out of it. But yeah, another week goes by and I just can't really say anything that positive about Zalta. And honestly, Zalta fans, I promise you that pains me, because we're all quite big fans of Mbile here, and we'd like to see things kind of, you know, turn for him, because, you know, he's had a hard time in his coaching career in Belgium up till now, and it seems to be getting a bit worse.
4 losses in a row, no wins since July, no away wins in 2022. Goalless in three wins in 2022, 2 of them against Seraing and 1 against Eupen. That's just some more facts on Zulte Waregem at the moment, that to show it even clearer in just a few words. Similar feeling as you guys, a lot of points taken by other bottom dwellers this week, so that puts a lot of pressure on Leje. Yeah, he got the confidence speech from the president last week, I believe, and usually that's a sign that not that much later after, if it doesn't turn around, the end is near. It seems he got a little more time. Maybe he'll get some time until a game against Kortrijk in 2 weeks, which is probably outside of being a derby. There is a lot of weight on it from both sides, most likely at that point. Still, for Westerlo, Ben stole my first line on my sheet, which was 3 wins on the bounce. So yeah, everything looking bright there. Only second clean sheet of the season though, after getting one on day 1. So actually, yeah, it's a positive thing, but it's a negative thing that it's only the second time, of course. And it's not a surprise that it was against Zulte Waregem, given what I just told you about them before.
What you said there, yours, kind of like it, because the problem with Zulte Waregem goes back to last season, and I feel like that's where I do feel slightly bad for Mbile. I think maybe it's because part of me really does want him to do well, and I quite like him as a coach and a manager and a person. I feel like we need more people like Mbile to be in coaching. Like, I'm kind of more diverse in terms of coaching, so you want these guys to do well. But it's just, yeah, like the recruitment just clearly hasn't been great. Like you said, Scott, which of those players have come off well? Romans. I think during the week there was an interview with Ndor, who obviously came over from Norway, and about how he was kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to get a rest until the World Cup. I've been playing, obviously he's been playing entirely through the summer and stuff like that. And I was like, blimey, yeah, that's a good point. But you'd then hope that he's coming in fresher and kind of more ready to get going and stuff during the season. So, yeah, I don't know. Good for, like you said, good for Westerlo. A clean sheet would be massive for them, because they have been chopping and changing that kind of back line a little bit to try and find a little bit more consistency. So maybe they have found that now. Nice to see Akbuna playing a lot more as well. I was quite excited to see what he was going to do when they brought him in from Kostape. So it seems to be clicking there at the moment. They got Club Brugge next, so that's kind of a nice little kind of tester to see where they're at the moment. But they've kind of turned things around a little bit there, and they'll be more than happy about that.
It was a bit funny as well to touch on that. After the game, his post-match interview, Westerlo coach De Roek joked a bit about, now we had the difficult game. Now the next week the easy game is coming for us.
Which just makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, because it's like there's no pressure. This was the pressure one.
That's
yeah, and I think now that's kind of like they'll quite relish that, I guess, being able to play without any pressure. Also, it's nice to see Lyle Foster scoring some goals. Good for South African football to have some players in different leagues other than the South African league doing bits. Let's go to the coast at Eastend against Genk. Genk on the attack early in this game, but then on the break, I don't know what the defence was doing. Watching the ball kind of drop between them, Thierry Ambrose racing onto it. It just kind of like everything muddles around. I haven't seen it close enough to see if he gets the pass off to Hornby or if it deflects off to Hornby. But I'm sure one of you.
It was a really nice.
Okay, so it was a pass. Yeah. Well, if that was, incredible pass then from Ambrose. Lovely finish from Fraser Hornby, actually. Really good composure to get it past Van der Voort. He was delighted. The fans were delighted as well. It stayed 1-0. Until the 25th minute. Really nice play on the right-hand side with Preciado, and I think it was Hayden, one of the midfielders there, before Preciado gets it back. Lovely cross for Onuachu. He's just not going to miss from there, you'd hope, and he didn't. So that made it 1 goal apiece. And that's, again, how it stayed until the 88th minute. Castro set piece, flicked on by Nemeth. Munoz is just kind of there. No one knows why, but there he is to pop up and score a goal. And I feel like this is not the first time that he's popped up when you've needed him from a set piece, Joris. I feel like he did this last year against Waregem or Kortrijk, where he just kind of ended the game. Munoz is there from a set piece to score you a goal, the player you'd least expect. Who's then kind of shot themselves in the foot by the end. David Atanga, probably slightly frustrated that he's just been dropped from the side altogether. Gets himself sent off in the 96th minute. Finishes 2-1 to Genk in this one. That keeps them in second place, 3 wins in a row. Were you happy that you got away from the coast with 3 points in this one, Joris?
It's the first game this season I've missed from Genk, to be honest, and I was happy to see the score after. Well, I checked it quite soon after the final whistle, and I was happy to see that I didn't have to go through all that, because it was apparently not really one of the best games of Genk. The defending, they were not taking the responsibility on the first goal. Yeah, okay, that shit happens, I guess. As long as it stayed at that, it was still. They were a bit more shaky than in previous games, but luckily Ostende couldn't do that much with it either. And I agree. Yes, Munoz did that against Kortrijk last season as well. Indeed, a similar goal from a Tresor set piece at last minute, and that seems to be the team: set pieces and last minute winners for Genk. That's 3 points made into 9 in the last 3 games, just by doing that, exactly that, but by 3 different. Players as well, and this time also a different set piece taker. But yeah, it is not the first time. I also wanted to touch on that. Like, teams probably should start. Well, I kind of don't want them to do so, but it's not the first time that Munoz pops up at the back post from a set piece. It seems to be one of his things. It doesn't always work out that he scores, but he's always a threat there. And yeah, I don't know how people still don't see that, but I didn't say that. But 3 in a row now in as well, indeed, with the last minute winners. Well, last minute or late winners at least. It seems to be getting 2 minutes earlier on each time. Fine by me. Munoz also scored against Waregem this season as well. But he did score, but I don't remember if it was similar like this or different. It was definitely from a set piece as well, but I'm not sure if it was similar like this. Yeah, and Onuachu, finally got off the mark as well. Although, of course, he hasn't not been playing that much either, but that's definitely going to be good for him to. He's been growing in the role that Franke wants him to play as well. So it's good for him to get that goal. And then another missed penalty for Genk. The last 2 penalties Genk had were missed, and the last 2 that Hubert faced, he saved. So I also have to give some credits where credits due. Although also the penalty was poorly put by Tresor. Ostende actually in the end defending quite well, because what I said about Ostende not creating much, you could also say the same about Genk. And they did hold them off quite well, as far as I could make up. Of course, I didn't completely rewatch the game. I had to base myself on highlights, but they didn't give away much.
I think I probably have to fire a question straight back to Joris, which he probably is not going to want to answer right at this stage, but do you feel a title challenge is ahead of schedule at the moment, Joris? Because I think a lot of us felt that, Genk would probably do kind of quite well again this season, but certainly I have been surprised by kind of how good things just generally are looking at the moment now that some of the players who nobody really wanted to leave because they were so good, but we all knew they were going to leave, and they were a major reason behind the kind of downturn in form before Rankin came in, have now left, and he's working with the players that want to be there. And clearly this team is enjoying playing for Wouter Rankin. The players are responding well. A lot of the body language to me looks very good, and a lot of those really strong offensive qualities in a coaching sense that we know Wouter Rankin brings to the teams that he coaches are kind of coming to the fore again. And generally speaking, to me, they're really looking very, very good. And I think if they can maintain anything close to the level, because they're managing to win games without necessarily going at it full tilt, a bit like they did here, then they could be right in the mix here. I was actually I was guesting on a West Ham podcast as a preview of Anderlecht's European game this week against West Ham, and I did get asked before recording about whether Genk might be able to sustain a challenge. The guys at the West Ham pod had been having a look at obviously the Pro League table and not having been following it as closely as perhaps they should have, shall we say. Why haven't they? That's what I did ask them, everybody. I did say why not, but they did notice that Genk were right in the mix at the moment and managing to kind of form quite an effective wedge between Antwerp and Club Brugge until I reminded them about the quirks of the playoff and how that works. But to me, things look ahead of schedule. What do you reckon, Joris?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected to be informed this quickly, and the power of group dynamic, I guess, that Wouter Rankin definitely has brought and has shown to the world once more, because it's of course not the first time he's doing a great job at the club. But for a title challenge, I don't think it's going to happen, just because of the uncertain position and certain key positions. The wings are literally clipped a bit, maybe to put it that way. Therefore, it's actually good that they won these last 3 games, because this happened with Paintsel being out for 2.5 of these 3 games, and they still managed to win. But they're a bit too reliant on certain things not happening, certain injuries or suspensions or anything bad that can happen. That might make them more predictable as well, and then make it easier for other teams to find them out, which is starting to happen, I think, as well already. But of course, I'm not complaining. I didn't expect any challenge. I'm not sure if in the end I went through with it, but I was probably the one that was least looking forward to the season with from Genk perspective, at least, for where I put him on the table. Yeah, I'm definitely pleasantly surprised, and we'll have to see how this continues, and long may it continue from me, of course.
Yeah, there's loads of good points there. I do remember you being kind of particularly pessimistic about the potential outlook this season. I at the moment feel if they can keep everybody fit and not lose anybody else that's kind of key, then I think they have the potential to be right in the mix. Give it another few weeks. We'll see how they get on with some of the other big boys. Obviously, there's a particularly big game coming up in the last round of fixtures before the World Cup, where Antwerp play club at Jan Breidel, I think it is, and I think that could be a big one. Not only a big test for where Antwerp are kind of going, but I think it'll have implications, obviously, for the Genkies as well, particularly if they can maintain this good form. So it's starting to kind of heat up a little bit, I think, guys.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think, agree with both of you on that in terms of not being convinced that they would be challenging. But if they're still up there come January and they can bring in, like Joris said, if they can bring in like a winger or two to kind of strengthen that side of it, then who knows?
By then, Oyen hopefully comes back as well, so from inside the squad. But yeah, by then, that's a bit optimistic, I guess. But yeah, it also depends a bit. I think that's also why in the end they didn't bring anyone in at all costs this summer window. Yeah, it's still a risk I wouldn't never have taken, but let's hope it doesn't backfire. Well, for me and for the other Yankees, that it doesn't backfire. But
yeah.
We'll have to pray a bit, I guess.
And it kind of makes sense in the sense of you don't want to block Oyen's kind of spot either do you. Like when he comes back, he needs to be the first kind of starting player, one of the starting players, because that's what you want to see from him. Let's move on to Vranken's former side. They travelled to Bruges. Mechelen travelled to Bruges to face Club Bruges. And yeah, it was a pretty routine win in the end by the look of things for Club Bruges. They had 22 shots overall in this game, ran out 3-0 winners. Seraing with the first goal. Just don't give him any time and space in the box, because if you do, like Mechelen did, he's going to punish you there. But that wasn't until the 37th minute, so Mechelen done pretty well to keep Club Bruges out until then. 53rd minute, it becomes 2-0 with a really, really nice goal from Edouard Sobel from a free kick. Just lashed it past Gaetan Cook in the Mechelen goal. And Tejan Buchanan, he's back, finally. Good to see him back on the pitch and back looking a little bit fit. He gets the final one. Noah Lang with a lovely cross to the back post. And I don't know, Buchanan kind of bundles it in. And I don't know, guys, I feel like all of Buchanan's goals are kind of like a bit odd. They're always just like, they're not clean. They just kind of like, it hits him and it goes in, or there's a deflection, it goes in, or something happens and it goes in. And not taking anything away from Buchanan, I think he's a really good player and a really exciting prospect. But I saw he'd scored, and then I saw the goal. I was like, yeah, maybe that's kind of going to be his kind of MO. That's his thing, just scoring slightly odd, hilarious goals. For Mechelen, yeah, 44% possession, just 2 shots on target in this one. Set up, well, by the look at it, it seems that they're setting up a little bit kind of defensively at the moment. I guess not having someone like Mrabti to go in there, which I guess this kind of approach from like kind of in terms of formation, what we've seen, Scott, is so different to the Mechelen we would have seen last year that would have gone to Club Bruges and been like, let's just score some goals and see what happens. Rather than now it's kind of will be a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more defensive. Yes, they've got injuries, so I think you can't take away from that. But looking at the starting lineup, it's still a decent side in the Pro League. Is that kind of what you saw, or was there more to it than what I'm giving them credit for?
I don't think they played badly, actually, at all. I worry about, you talked about the offensive side of their game. The offensive drop-off is becoming more and more noticeable by the week, actually. I've been saying for probably about a month now, almost every week, that I feel just the balance of the side isn't right for various reasons. It's partly to do with injuries. It's partly to do with the fact that some of the players there now that have been starting regularly, I think, are not really doing enough, I think. But the offensive drop-off, just to come back to that for a minute, because I think that's the main thing for me, is starting to get a bit of a concern. I mean, six shots, only 2 in target here at the weekend this game. And normally Mechelen under, in a previous life under Vranken, for example, probably would have had something in the region of 15 shots at least in a game on average. So, their output's dropping to about a third of what it used to be, which means obviously your chances of picking up points reduce. The same defensively, I don't think they're somewhat bizarrely as solid as they were before, as well, which is difficult. So there's a lot of things that are just out of sync for me, and it's just kind of not clicking. I think Julian Ngoy, as much as I like him, and I was quite excited when he signed for Mechelen, because he's a player I've quite liked for a long time. I thought I like that as a pickup for them. He's not. He's not doing enough at the moment on his own, which is not unsurprising. It's a slightly unreasonable ask, but, the support isn't good enough, I think, either. I think the players that would normally provide the service to him aren't playing at full tilt either for various reasons. So it's all just a little bit lackluster, I think, for Malinois at the moment. And actually, I never thought I would say this, but they're becoming a little bit boring to watch. It pains me to say, and that's a sore one for me, because as everyone knows, I have a slight soft spot for Malinois for a number of reasons. On club's perspective, just for a minute, I thought Ferran Yukla's goal was wonderful, actually. What a great finish that was. The way he just lifts that very, very gently when he makes contact as well, which means, almost no keeper's going to get a chance of saving that. I thought technically that was a really, really sweet goal, that one. Not much could have been done about Sobol's goal, I think. It was just a brilliant free kick. In the end, I think Club just kind of wore them down, but you just never felt watching this game, or certainly I didn't, that actually Mechelen were going to score.
Yeah, not much to add, especially from Mechela's side. Not much to show offensively, which is worrying, and you guys touched on. And defensively, I think they were quite okay in general as well. I agree with Scott; it was not their worst game at all, but just a few times defensively not top, and no, then you're going to be punished. From Club Brugge side of view, also not that much to say, but I think for the Club Brugge fans that should take that as a compliment. Just a routine win in the end, despite not playing sparkling necessarily all the time, but it was not necessary. They did what they needed to do. And well, it's worth mentioning that Jorne Spielers got his debut as a young center back, and that Lang and Buchanan are back. Of course, it's good to see for them as well, so that they are only getting stronger and definitely in the squad depth. Yeah, I was not completely convinced by Kukum with that goal, to be honest, and a bit surprised by the praise here. Although, of course, he does well, but I'm not sure if he should have done better there. I'll leave that in the middle. I'm not an expert in that, and it's not really worth discussing much. It was not a big error or something, but I have this feeling like maybe he could have done better.
I love this. Regular listeners will know that Arjoris was a goalkeeping coach in a former life, and is particularly critical of goalkeepers, which I always love, because it's the one position in a pitch which is probably the most difficult to analyse and be critical of as well, which is interesting. I think. Yeah, I mean, I
It's
think
more that when he gets there, he should do
yeah.
better. That's the thing. It's like I said, it's not a big mistake or anything, but just like since he gets there, maybe he can push it out, maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think you might be right about it. You might be right. I think it's a combination of a great bit of technique and what you were saying. Interestingly, on kind of, since you highlighted Cook, I thought he was one of the um one of the real positives from a Mechlin point of view in that game. He, without of a shadow of a doubt, kind of kept them in the game at 2-0 for quite a long time, when they were trying their best to, kind of salvage something out of the game. And he alone, kind of kept it a contest for, the majority of the game, with a number of kind of decent saves.
Yep, no argument there.
Stephen Defour, of course, is yeah. Stephen Defour, of course, on the touchline for Malinois as well this weekend, because Danny Boyce was suspended after his rather amusing red card recently as well. Don't go applauding refs in their face too often, anybody. Otherwise, the same treatment will be coming your way. He was talking before the game, Stephen Defour, about how excited, how up for it he was. I'm sure at the end of the day he was a bit more deflated about it, but I hope that hasn't deterred him from wanting to kind of get into the, to a T1 role more, because I think that's something that certainly he aspires to very much. He certainly hasn't had that either.
Yeah, good experience for him, being on the touchline in a game like this and kind of trying to manage it in that sense. But fair play to Club Brugge for getting the win in this one. A side that I think put up almost as many shots in their game as Club Brugge, but didn't get the win, was Anderlecht against Charleroi. And I think I saw what load of waffle say. It just felt like one of those games where the longer it went on, the more likely it was that Charleroi are actually going to win this, despite Anderlecht having nearly all of the ball, having the domination in terms of shots and stuff. And that is what happened. Ryoto Morioka against his former side. Really nice play from Mbenza actually to unleash, I think it was Chachwai at that point, and he crosses it in. There's Morioka just to nonchalantly, and I don't think nonchalantly has ever been used in a better way than to describe this goal, because he is so casual with the finish. And I think it was basically like his goal against Club Brugge earlier in the season. Like he's just so calm and casual with those finishes. It's one of those things that if he does that and he misses, you're just like, put your foot through it, please. But when it goes in, you're like, oh, that's class. Didn't celebrate, as is the way these days. Just kind of held his hands up. But Charleroi held on to win this one. Mazu under even more pressure now, because Anderlecht are 10th in the table, just so inconsistent. Like, look across their past 5 games, 3 defeats, 1 draw, 1 win, only on 13 points, which is 4 points better than Seraing and Eupen and Cercle Bruges. So it's not really going well is it for Mazu guys and Anderlecht? Whereas for Charleroi, they're now becoming one of those sides. They either win or they draw. They win or they lose, sorry. No draws yet this season. And scored 16, conceded 16, nothing for a goal difference. It's like, if you like that kind of symmetrical thing, it's quite nice to look at on the table. But I'm sure Mr. Still is wanting a little bit more consistency, but he must have been absolutely delighted with a win at Lotto Park this weekend.
Well, it's interesting, Ben was absolutely spot on, but he said, the pressure's just kind of ramping up at Anderlecht all the time now, particularly on Mazu. I think when you look at the context of this, it's quite grim, really, looking at it from the outside, because, it is their third worst start, I think, in 30 years, and the two previous coaches who had the worst and the second worst start at this stage of the season had both gone by now. So, they're digging their heels in a little bit, I think, the hierarchy of the club. And there seems to be this situation where the fans, my perception is a lot of the fans are now starting to turn on them a bit, which is a big issue in itself, because once you'd start to lose fans, then I think things gather pace kind of quite quickly. Although the players publicly, and I think privately, from what I can gather, are still expressing that they're completely behind them, it's difficult to square that with kind of, obviously the results and what's going on. So it's very, very difficult for them. I think the hierarchy at the club, obviously, I was talking about them digging their heels in, and I think they are resisting making a decision at the moment, because obviously that is almost an admittance that they got it wrong in the summer, despite the fact there's a lot of evidence that suggests that maybe they should be making a change. It's very, very difficult and very, very frustrating days for them. Just looking ahead, actually, in some of their fixtures, I think they've obviously got the double header against West Ham coming up, which is almost a free hit. They can go out there, hopefully relax a little bit, which is something that certainly they didn't do this weekend. They were showing signs of a bit of tension and not really enjoying themselves, I thought, which is not surprising. But yeah, they've got the double header against West Ham. They've then domestically, they go to the Acta da Caserne to play Mechelen away. And then the big one, which is always a big one, but I think has even bigger connotations, possibly for Mazu in particular, is the home game against Club coming up soon. I think if Anderlecht were to lose that, then I think it would be very difficult for anybody to justify not making a change. I'm not someone who particularly calls for any coach to get removed. It's absolutely not my style, but you just look at this from the outside. And again, it was when I was guesting on the West Ham pod last night to preview the European game. We talked at length about the whole issue at Anderlecht at the moment being very much a situation where they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And there's only going to be one loser here, really, unfortunately.
Yeah, out of the 7 games still to come before the winter break, they have to play 3 times against the current top 3. Also, there's the away game against Standard as well, always a feisty one. And they really have some really big games coming up after already not having having a really bad, terrible start, actually. So it is not looking great. Duranville got his first start to stay at Anderlecht then before giving some praise to Charleroi. Not that much higher, to be honest, but okay. But yeah, not in his own position, which is a part of the problem as well. The position Duranville usually would play, which is higher up on the pitch, just doesn't exist in the system Mazu is playing. He needs to start him too low on the pitch, so he doesn't, completely can carry it on until it actually can create any danger. And it's a bit much to ask for a 16-year-old. Yeah, 1 win in the last 6 games even, so I guess there's some consistency, but not the kind you want to see. 5 losses in 10 league games. Yeah, in like Ben touched on already as well, 10th position now, so that's officially the second half of the table. Things are really not looking great for Mazu, but we'll have to see how it continues and indeed how much longer the board can maintain their current position and not admit their what looks to be a mistake in the summer, which indeed puts themselves under a lot of pressure as well, which is maybe another reason why Mazu is still in relatively calm waters, it seems. But I don't think he must really rest much. That could change really quickly, maybe inside 1 game even already. Then to Charleroi, to be honest, they were quite poor despite this win. So in that sense, and to come back to what Ben said, if the consequence of being that symmetric in winning and in your goal scoring and your conceding, I don't think it still is going. Well, it still or anyone is really happy with that. But he will be happy with the win, of course. And yeah, it looks like that Patron is a really decent coffee replacement as well. So an unlikely position where a player is really challenged, and it's still also really confirmed that he will keep his place at least for the next game. He has now a few games that he replaced Coffee, and he's done well in both I think it is both occasions, even maybe more occasions, but on all occasions I've seen at least. Yeah, a shout out to him as well in the Charleroi goal. Charleroi taking the win on the break.
Yeah, can't argue with either of you guys on that one. Yeah, I feel like Mazu's going to be given kind of a hope he turns it around time is what they're probably going to go for, and just fingers crossed he does turn it around for them is what they're thinking. Did forget to say, yeah, Pierre Patron, great game for him. I think it's only fair if you have a really good game like that, you should keep your place. Like, obviously, that's coming from one of Herve Coffee's biggest fans, but I just feel like reward someone when they play well, puts pressure on Coffee when he comes back, and then you've got a really nice kind of two very good goalkeepers putting pressure on each other, which isn't the worst thing that can happen, although consistency between the sticks can be quite important. Two goalkeepers who had to do a lot of picking the ball out of the net were at Ghent against Cercle Bruges. Just plenty of goals in this one. It was kind of a Dino Hotic, Kevin Denke show. Kevin Denke getting the opening goal in this one, thanks to a nice cross across the goal that he then put away. There was quite a few goals that ended up looking like this. It was 1-0 at half time until Hugo Kuipers took advantage of a bit of hesitation, I guess, from Majewski in the Cercle goal. He didn't really commit to coming or going. Kuipers kind of got it, dragged it back across, and then put it back in the bottom corner. Nice finish from him. He's looking more and more at home in Ghent. Then Dino Hotic came to the party. Lovely kind of assist from Denke. He was just being a bit of a menace up front, using his physical ability to kind of get the ball, hold it up, lay it off, which we saw quite a lot from him last year. And I remember Thalhammer said that's what he loved about Denke, was not just his ability to press, but his ability to bring others into the game. And you really saw it here because he got a ton of assists after that goal. He feeds Dino Hotic running in on the right-hand side. Hotic then puts it in the back of the net. I'd actually been asked this week what was kind of happening with Dino Hotic because his numbers weren't looking as good. And it seems like he must have heard that conversation because, yeah, he absolutely lit this one up. So 59th minute, he makes it 2-1 to Cercle Bruges. Kuipers, again, 68th minute, not great defending from Cercle Bruges to let the ball just kind of drop inside the box. And yeah, he's not making a mistake from that close distance, absolutely lashes it past Majewski, who's could literally do nothing about this second one. And then it kind of kept swinging. Here, Hotic again, Denke assist, although it feels like a generous assist to give. Like, it's good play again from Denke to find him on the right-hand side. Hotic takes a touch, cuts in, fires it in past Davy Roof. And Cercle fans must be thinking, right, we're 3-2 up, let's just go at least a couple of minutes without conceding. Let's consolidate what we have because we've been conceding goals recently. However, literally 2 minutes later, they let Laurent Depotre score to make it 3 apiece. And Majewski's at that point just tearing his hair out. Miro Muslic must have been like, oh, blimey. Like, we're on to a good start here, but what are we doing at the back? They then do get a penalty, which I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this one because it looked pretty soft. Ball into the box. I think is it Deman who, as he's running in, gets taken out. Well, sort of taken out, like kind of gets ran into the back into and pushed over. One of those ones that when they take it to VAR, the ref's obviously going to give it at that point. But one of those things that it happens quite a lot in the area, like this sort of incident, that doesn't always get flagged. And I think sometimes it should get flagged more than it does because, especially when it is denying someone the ball, but he wasn't really ever going to get the ball. At this point, Hans Olsen's already won the header. Demand's not beating Hans Olsen to a header in that situation as well because he's behind the ball. So you can see what had just been when they let go. They didn't. VAR intervened. It's given as a penalty. Dino Hotic then steps up. Lovely kind of stutter step run up before firing it past Davy Roof again. Didn't manage to save this one despite being a penalty specialist. Hotic has a hat-trick. Cercle Bruges get a win, 4-3. Muslic gets a win on his first game. Carlos is probably sitting there quite happy after the kind of situation with the sacking of Thalhammer. Good win for Cercle. Tough for Ghent in the sense with that last minute kind of penalty, but it's games like this which is why you're kind of thinking, and by this point, their kind of title challenge is over. I thought they'd have a sneaky chance at one when they had Tisu Dali, but without him, and then with games like this, that's 2 losses on the bounce. They're in 9th place, just above Anderlecht at the moment. And interestingly, we don't feel, I don't know, guys, is Hein under as much pressure as Mazu? It doesn't feel like it from where I'm sitting, but potentially he is. I don't know.
I think he probably is under a little bit. I don't think that's an unreasonable question to kind of be raising at this point. Not so much because of the expectations, but just purely based on results. I think he would be able to give you probably quite a long, in-depth lecture on his feelings about that with Big Ein. You know, he's obviously been talking a lot about referees this season, been talking about a lot of the decisions that have gone against them, some of which I think rightly have been a bit dodgy, particularly in retrospect when you get to kind of to look at them. But, you know, I'm one of these people who tends to believe these things sort of even themselves out over the course of a season somewhere. Things haven't really been going their way. I think there have been mistakes at key moments in games, which I think have been pretty critical to them losing games. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit of pressure on him now, no doubt about it, but, you know, no immediate pressure as such. Interestingly, from a Ghent perspective, I don't think it'll be too much longer before Julien Dessart is necessarily back. He is back in light training. And I think he could be a massive bonus if he could get some game time before the World Cup, which is still very much up in the air. Such a kind of potentially, season-changing player for a club like Ghent in lots of ways, even with Tisu Dali being out. The thing that impressed me most about Cercle this weekend was how they handled the last 20-25 minutes of the game. We know the way that they play, and because of the way they play, they're particularly vulnerable in the last sort of 25 minutes of games. With the substitutions you used and the tactical tweaks you make become even more important because the energy levels naturally drop a bit because of how intense the game is for them in most weeks up to that point. And I thought Miran Muslic actually handled that quite interestingly this weekend. You know, in that last sort of 25 minutes, we saw him bringing on Hotic came on, and he brought on Uida for Torres for the last 20 minutes or so, which was a very positive change to kind of make. So he was mixing up how he kind of approached and managed the kind of the last third of a game, which was something I was looking out for particularly in light of some of the things that perhaps led to Dominic Thalhammer's departure. Interestingly, Dominic Thalhammer has been in touch with us here at the BFP recently. I spoke to him after he got in touch with me directly, and kind of we had a little conversation about his feelings about, you know, leaving Cercle and you know how data is used in football, which was really, really interesting, and maybe Dominic will join us on the show at some point in the future. You know, he certainly suggested he'd be happy to do that once the dust is settled and you know he's had a chance to kind of process his experience in Belgium. The good news for everybody is he really enjoyed his time in Belgium despite the way it ended, and would I think love to come back, you know, which is good to hear. You know, coaches don't always necessarily want to rush to come back to somewhere where you know things haven't kind of gone right for them. So that was kind of interesting to kind of hear from him. But yeah, the way Miran Muslic approached the kind of last half hour of this game I thought was really interesting. Equally, it was nice to see Miran in his civvies. He's thrown away the tracksuit now that he's the new T1, and I thought was looking rather sharp this weekend. Hotic, on the subject of his hat-trick, I was really impressed with that, mainly because the hat-trick came in the last half hour of the game again, that point where players will naturally tire, which I thought was more, you know, players, you know, and commentators make a lot, there's a hat-trick in the first half hour of that game. How brilliant was that? Arguably, this is more impressive, you know, because it's much, much later in the game. On the subject of the penalty, I definitely agree with Ben. I think it was quite soft, and I'm not sure it was a penalty, but it's that thing I was saying about, you know, sometimes, you know, when things are going against you, you just need a little bit of luck to go for you, and Cercle got that this weekend. And it'll be interesting to see if this can be, a real catalyst for them now, because they haven't been playing badly, they just haven't been efficient, and they certainly found some real clinical efficiency this weekend.
It's the little things, isn't it? Like in the when Heiter was brought on, Cercle was still leading. A few minutes later, Gent equalize. Then Gent score. Cercle score again. 1 minute later, they equalize as well. So I'm not sure what the game management there is doing well. But just that's the little things you have to have in your favor sometimes, I guess, to put another perspective on that as well. It is interesting to see them score 4 goals in 90 minutes after scoring only 5 in 810 minutes before that. Well, a bit more than 810 even in all previous games, that is. Also, the first points away from home for them, while the goalkeeper was not having the best performance, has already been touched on as well. Like Onuachu, also the Poitro is of the mark now, from Jens' perspective then already. And on the other hand, striking partner Kuipers is on 7 goals now, and a joint top scorer at the moment. So you can also see, not only in this game but already before that, where the problem lies with Gent this season. And which is a strange thing, though. What happened with that strong defensive balance that they had last season that made them go on a good run and to finish off the season? And of course, were a few absentees here and there. Also in this game, Tunura Riga was not there, was not available. Still, what happened there? And I guess to the coaching question, I guess Van Hazenbroek built up a bit of credit in Gent already in the past, so I guess that's why he seems to be in a bit under a bit less pressure. Also, have to maybe highlight that both for Mazu and for Van Azenbroek, their teams are currently not in a good position, but a few points make all the difference as well. Fourth placed Union is only 5 points ahead of them at the moment as well, which is it's difficult already. It's not good to be in that position, but it's not something you can't overcome necessarily. And especially if you start looking from fifth place Leuven, then that's only 3 points. That's even inside one game. Yeah, that's for them, and then a little more with that one extra point difference for Anderlecht to catch up. That it's possible, but of course they will, if they really want to aim even higher than that. They shouldn't dwell too much longer if they want to still maintain a playoff one challenge, and then you can see what's still possible in that playoff. But in general, not in a good position at the moment. And what happened with that defense? That's really an enigma to me, for actually.
Yeah, I think on that defense, it's kind of like the personnel. It's interesting because Hans Olsen's been playing a fair amount more this season than he did at the back end of last season when he went for that Ngaju Ukumu Torunariga one. So then Torunariga's out, and you think, well, Hans Olsen's going to come in, but then they play Godot instead. So you're like, well, it just seems. I don't know. I feel like a couple of decisions maybe were made this weekend in terms of personnel that were done because they felt the opposition were weaker. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. But interesting to say the least. And sometimes these things do backfire. And sometimes you can try and be a little bit too clever for your own good rather than just kind of sticking with what has worked in the past. Speaking of sticking with what's worked in the past, Antwerp would have loved to have done that. However, in typical fashion, Kortrijk have been absolutely terrible the last 2 games. They then face the only team that's unbeaten, and obviously they go and win. And I feel like I don't know, guys, they don't win this if Didier Lamkelzee has not joined them, because it's just he was always going to do something in this game, and he obviously did. He was the assist maker for the first goal on the counter-attack. Antwerp just pushing quite a few players forward. He gets it, just charges down the line, plays it across. Big Avenatti finishes it off. But it's all about Didier Lamkelzee after that, isn't it? Of course, it's all about Didier Lamkelzee. Straight over to the Antwerp fans. Avenatti's telling him to come back, and fair play. He's like, come on, mate, let's just celebrate here. He just slides and just lies there in front of the Antwerp fans, who obviously are not going to take that very well, given his misdemeanors with them before. You knew he was going to do that when it happened. So that was 1-0 to Kortrijk. And Selemani then made it 2-0 just before half-time. Again, just not great defending, actually, from Antwerp. We've praised William Pacho quite a bit, but I felt like he didn't cover himself in glory here. Neither did John Butte. Like, both of them were kind of at fault for this one. Soleimani kind of sneaking in, getting it, and then putting it in the back of the net to make it 2-0. Again, Didier Lamkelzee was absolutely loving this one. He let the Antwerp fans know about it. They had enough of the ball, 60% possession, 21 shots, only 5 of which were on target. To be fair to Kortrijk, 13 shots with their 38% possession. So efficiency, as we always say, they were efficient in this one. Jensen did get his goal in this one from the spot in the 92nd minute, but too little, too late for Antwerp at that point. And yeah, this was kind of the reason, you can see, isn't it, guys, why they didn't want to sell Lamkelzee within the Pro League, because he's that sort of player that, like, something will happen, and if he's got the bit between his teeth and if he's got that focus, he is a quality player. And it was always going to be this against Antwerp, wasn't he? He was always going to do something in this game.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it, what happens when the league leaders come to town in terms of motivating you? You know what I mean? What a rocket up your arse that was, obviously. Do you remember, guys, I mean, listeners won't know this, but I'll share this with everybody. Just before this game started, I said to the guys, I dread to think what Lamkelzee is going to do if he scores in this game. The irony being, of course, he didn't need to score. He provided an assist, and the way he responded, you would have thought he'd scored a hat-trick against Antwerp. You know, such was his need for that validation. I didn't for a second think, by the way, that he was going to be respectful. You know, had he scored, you know, most players obviously don't tend to celebrate against previous clubs they've played for. I didn't think there was any chance of that happening, but it was such a remarkable reaction for what was just an assist, not even a goal. He then continued his celebrations post-match on his own Instagram feed, somewhat unwisely posted some stuff which may yet get him into a bit of trouble. The club have come out and said that they don't really endorse his behaviour, and that, you know, he kind of should know better, basically, which is pretty much what they've said. But he may yet find himself on the spot of border for some of his nonsense on Instagram. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because although Kortrijk have been struggling, the Guildensporen has always been quite a difficult place to go. So although I didn't think this was where the run was going to end, I'm not massively surprised by it for a number of reasons. And I just wonder how much of a say Lamkelzee had in the pre-match team talk, because in terms of motivation, it might not have been the worst thing in the world for Kustovic to say, do you know what, Diddy, you're giving the team talk this week. You're the man.
Apparently, he promised them pizza for before the game if they would win. So I guess that was enough. That was already enough.
Are you suggesting that the Kortrijk boys are cheap? They can be bought by pizza?
Yeah, apparently, but yeah, Lamkelzee. You can consider this a verbal eye roll, but Kortrijk with a needed victory after 2-4-1 losses in a row, and definitely also given all the other results. Well, not all, but a lot of all the other results around them this weekend. They really needed to win this one. Yeah, Zee and Avonati being the ones responsible for that first goal against their former team, because yes, obviously is completely undershadowed who scored the goal and then what he meant for in the game, and then what he played for the other team as well. That is quite a remarkable combination, though. But yeah, okay. And Antwerp, they finally got that first loss, despite not playing too badly, to be honest. That's this time they were lacking efficiency, and some things went not their way. Pacho was defending really bad on that first goal, and Lamkelzee. Yeah, honestly, I know he's entertainment, and I'm all for entertainment, but in a way, this was like a bit of expected entertainment from him, and that's. Yeah, I'm not buying into the show.
We've seen it so many times. That's the thing.
Yeah, and I do. So, like I said, I do like entertainment, but it doesn't always have to come from the same people either.
No.
So
Yeah, I can get that. I think it's just everyone's. So a lot of people are just a bit sick and tired of Didier Lamkelzee, and I can completely understand why. Yeah, it kind of sets them up nicely. They've got Genk next, obviously, so it gives them a little bit of confidence going into that away game. And then they have the derby against Ottawa again, which, yeah, that's going to be a massive game, because they're both still going to be right down there at that point.
And for the Genk game, there's Soleimani probably will make them motivated then with another transfer story. So, well, we keep continuing there. But okay, that's at least someone else. Then.
I'm not sure he's got the shithousery of a Lam Calzee in him compared to what Lam Calzee could do. So maybe it won't be as bad. Let's go to St. Truden. They finished off the weekend with the game against the Pandas of Eupen, and don't know how they weren't winning in this first half. I mean, not the best game, to be honest. I watched all of this one. This was actually the one game I managed to watch all of, and it was 0-0 at half time. I was like, you have to be joking. How have I picked this? But Eupen in the first half were just pretty. This offered absolutely nothing going forward. They were really, really poor. I thought St. Truden were a lot better than them. I thought Konate and Boya kind of were bossing the midfield for quite a lot of time. Bocat, Eric Junior Bocat, got his first start, and yeah, I think he actually had a pretty decent game. But it's one of those ones where you're like, maybe an Aboubakari Koita in this situation would have maybe done a little bit, been more of an X factor. I thought Bocat he was good getting up and down, but he didn't quite have that little bit extra that Koita can sometimes give you when he makes the right decision, I guess. But on Eupen's side, I just thought their team selection was all wrong. It gave them absolutely nothing going forward. And I think I messaged you guys at half time and I was like, if I'm managing this side, Reagan Charles Cook and Conan Indri are getting in my team somehow. And lo and behold, Reagan Charles Cook and Conan Indri get on the pitch, Eupen score and win the game. Really lovely play again. I think it's either Chrissy Davis or Peters with the ball kind of in between the back line of St. Truden to release Reagan Charles Cook. He crosses it in. Conan Indri puts it away. He almost scored again just a few minutes later, but hit the post. And yeah, Eupen get the win. Again, it's a massive win for them because there was that pressure that was put on them by the Seraing victory. And I don't know, guys, watching this game, Prevolyak looked really off it, which is concerning for them. I just like Teddy Allows come in from PSG. I just feel like Reagan Charles Cook is a much better option on the wing, and he showed that with his ability to create something. And what does Conan Indri do in training that means managers just don't want to pick him? Because we see him on the pitch and we think there's clearly a talented player there who makes some things happen. Yeah, he's not the finished article, and yeah, he'll make some mistakes and stuff like that. But I just feel like they're a more exciting team to watch, and they're a better team with him on the pitch. So fingers crossed this is finally the goal that gives him the kind of chance to start in this one. But also just wanted to give a shout out to Moser in between the sticks, because he came up with some big saves in this game. One of them, which was from, I think it was a one-on-one with Fatih Kaya. He made a big save there, and then a little bit later on, I think from Bruno Okazaki, he made another good save. So big win for them. Bernstorg will be delighted, and fingers crossed for some more Conan Indri, I guess.
Yeah, I thought the last half an hour of this game was really, really good. Actually, it was really open stuff, and this game could have finished, a bit like the Ghent Cercle game. This game could have finished 4-3 or 5-4 quite easily. So open was that last half hour. Some unbelievable chances missed from both sides. Actually, I think Eupen, obviously, the first half of this game, that's clearly a side who are playing on quite low confidence. Ben was talking about some of the choices that Stork made with his lineup there, and I think that's obviously affected his thinking a little bit as well. I think he was being a bit cautious. Ben's in the wrong job actually, because he called it. He said Reagan Charles Cook and Indri should have started. They come on, and like Ben says, it kind of changed after that. So that tells us something. Really important win for Eupen, particularly in light of the fact that Cercle win, Kortrijk win. Zalta lose again. It's a big one. We know Eupen are going to be in for a long, difficult season, so to have got 3 points there was definitely a plus, because I didn't see that, so it's a right good result for them. Missed opportunity for St. Truden. That's the way I look at it from their point of view. Didn't play badly, just didn't take their chances, and that's what can happen. We know it at this level.
Indeed, and well, most of my things already said as well. I wanted to also give another shout out in this case and to Moser, who kept Eupen really in the game long enough for Charles Cook and Drie to make a difference from the bench, and they were at least under a lot of pressure. When all the other bottom dwellers are already won. Yeah, they managed to do so. I also don't really know how they did it. The game was indeed quite poor. The last, actually, it coincided with these changes, I guess. Charles Cook and Andries Sub started to immediately make an impact, and Eupen created a few chances, and like it was a surprise that by that time that they didn't score. But before that and after that as well, Sint-Truiden probably should have scored as well. They seem to have to go already to Sint-Truiden as well. They seem to be having a bit of a scoring issue or an efficiency issue, as we like to call it here all the time. I feel for Sint-Truiden, from Sint-Truiden's point of view, these are the kind of games they actually need to win. Not for, like, I don't think there will be any danger, but if they have any ambitions to move a bit higher up in the table, and then even higher ambitions, these are the kind of games that they should not lose against teams like Eupen, because okay, like I don't see them getting into trouble, but if they would lose a few more of these, then who knows, maybe then they bring these other teams up, of course, single-handedly, and they need to get the points somewhere else. But okay, this kind of game happens every season, and in a season, but they really need to get their strikers scoring on a regular basis, I guess, because at times this season they have, but yeah, it's still not completely clicking up front. I have the feeling, and defensively, yeah, they seem to be still solid, but sometimes also not as solid as they used to be. But these are again little things, I suppose, there as well. But yeah, Eupen needed to win this game. Had to win this game. Who else would have won this game after this weekend? I think to conclude about the whole Sunday, I think if I were a betting man and I would have guessed on any of the Sunday games, I guess I would have gotten nil right. So yeah, that's
so true.
And I don't think I would be the only one. So.
No, there'll be a lot of people who'll be very annoyed with their accumulators or whatever they are with these sort of games. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's my thing in that game. If Sint-Truiden had scored before Eupen, that game would have probably been over. I just think they'd have been able to shut them out relatively comfortably because they could have just sat a few more players back. Interestingly, like when I was very surprised when Hollaback took off Christian Bruls. You just feel like someone like a Christian Bruls is the player you want. Like, he obviously did then bring on Kagawa, so it's not like he's not brought any creativity on. But yeah, I think they'd probably like to have Hara back as well, because I don't think Fatih Kaya is the starting striker in a Pro League side. I think he may be fine coming off the bench, but he just lacked the confidence, especially with the finish that he had. I said before, like, Burkhardt start effort, he did well. I do like a Bubakari Koita, but I kind of see what Hollaback is doing there in the sense that he wants someone that can come off the bench with a little bit more injection of pace, that little bit more directness, that can slightly change things up a little bit.
Which is ironically what happened to the other way around.
Exactly. Like, it completely it's funny how these things kind of happen like that. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think they don't think they're in any danger, but I think they should be aiming for a playoff 2 spot. That's where they should be pushing for. And these are the sort of games you have to win if you're going to get anywhere near sort of that level. Anyway, let's move quickly on because we've actually spoken for quite a long time this evening. Let's move quickly to 1B, the Challenger Pro League. I'll quickly run through the results and then Scott, over to you for any little more insights. Dender beat Young Genk 2-0. Good result for them. Viton and Club Next played out a 3-3 draw. Sulemanan scored again, my man Sulemanan. Lommel beat Molenbeek 2-1. Beerschot beat a hapless Denzer 2-0. Vazan Beveren, what a result for them. Absolutely destroyed the league leaders, Liège, 5-0. And then in the Academy derby, I guess we could say, was Standards Academy against Anderlecht Futures. Anderlecht Futures ran out 3-1 winners. Scott, any more places of interest? I feel like quite a few big results happened this weekend down there.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things kind of worth pointing out with the Challenger Pro League this weekend. I think the main news, obviously, over the last few days is Denza's T1 Takahisa Shirahashi has now left by mutual consent with the club. I think that wasn't a surprise. They were in free fall. It just wasn't working, to be honest, and they've parted ways. We don't know who's going to be taking over yet on a permanent basis, but Shirahashi's left Denza, who now sit rock bottom of the table as well after another defeat. So that's kind of the main story over the last few days. Other things that I think worth kind of pointing out, actually, Ben mentioned Beveren's fantastic win this weekend. Big shout out to Beveren's attacking midfielder Lucas Ribeiro, who had an absolutely brilliant game this weekend, scored 1 in the game and provided 3 assists for some of the other goals, and he was great. And I saw a bit of that game actually this weekend, and I have to say, Beveren absolutely punished every single mistake that Lierse made. Every loose ball they were right on top of, and it's almost the perfect example of what we keep talking about in terms of clinical and efficiency. They made everything count, and were great this weekend. Dender, as Ben was saying, now 2 wins in the bounce. They appear to have acclimatised to this level. There was chat for a few weeks about them having to take time to kind of find their feet, which they now seem to have done. Whether they can string anything more together, we'll just need to wait and see over the next few weeks. But I think we're starting to see signs that they've got used to the pace and energy at this level, and the step up from the first amateur division kind of below this. Beerschot are top of the table now on goal difference from Anderlecht under 23s on 13 points. Lommel are sitting third after their good win at home against Molenbeek. Lierse and Beveren fourth and fifth respectively on 12 points. But it's still all kind of quite tight at the moment, and we must remember that there are less games before the playoff point comes in the Challenger Pro League as well, so teams have to get up to speed a little bit quicker. But as ever, it's never dull in this division and always worth checking out.
Yes, lovely goal by Sardella as well, of course, and a remarkable return to a Genk side by Sebastian de Waast as well in the Friday game where he played against Dender. Just my 2 cents. I don't have much to add, but there were a few things there. But definitely check out that back heel goal by Sardella, a defender no less, of course.
I do love the idea of a 30-something-year-old Sebastian de Waast playing for a side called Young Genk. It just seems quite funny. Bless him. Yes, I think kind of looking at that table, it looks like you're kind of getting the playoffs look like this is how they're going to be, if you know what I mean. Like, these are the sides that are going to be in the top one and the bottom one. It's like you're kind of you're not getting that separation in terms of points, but in kind of standings within the league. But yeah, as always, check that one out. Probably wraps up most of it for this week. We'll obviously recap all the European matches next week once we hear more about them. Coming up this weekend, we have the Friday game is Antwerp against St. Truden. Genk versus Kortrijk, as we already mentioned, that's Saturday kickoff. Seraing host Oostende, looking to try and make it back-to-back wins for the first time in forever. Zultevagem, another big game for them. They host Leuven. Club Brugge of the Saturday night game once again when they host, as we mentioned before, newly promoted Westerlo. Mechelen host Anderlecht on Sunday lunchtime. Anderlecht will be under pressure to win that one for sure. Eupen host Ghent, who will be looking to get rid of that 2 losses on the bounce. Charleroi against Standard, a nice little Walloon derby, before Union round off the weekend's action with a home game against Cercle Bruges. Just quickly going over to the fantasy football, because we haven't touched on that for a while, but as we come into October, it's Michael de Klerk with Ferran FC at the top of the table. Dieter van Goot continuing that fantastic season. He is there in second place, and then Wout Eki has moved up into third place, and then it kind of drops off to the rest of us a little bit. I think there's a 40-point and something gap. So, yeah, we'll be looking to turn that round. But, yeah, congratulations to those guys. Keep going strong in the Fantasy League. And I think, that probably wraps it up for this episode. Scott and Joris, as always, thank you for joining me.
Cheers, guys. Pleasure as always. And good luck to all the Belgian sides over the next few days in Europe. Bring us some coefficient points back, please.
Yes, we can't get enough of those. Yeah, glad to be back.
Absolutely. Just about to settle down and watch Club Brugge against Atletico Madrid. So let's hope for some coefficient points and a good win for the boys in blue. Anyway, as always, thank you very much to you for listening. If you like what we do, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. And if you want to get in touch, you can reach us in all the usual places and ask us any questions you have. But thanks once again for listening, and we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.